So we were talking about friction fire, and I'll keep this one to the point. So here's the spindle. It's getting kind of short now. On the spindle I have a little bit of tree sap. I've taken and scored lines, vertical lines, up and down the spindle, so that the bow, actually the bow string, can kind of grip around it and get extra leverage so that the string doesn't slip around the spindle. The bottom of the spindle is kind of like a pencil eraser, and the top of the spindle should look more like a pencil, and a tapered pencil. Sometimes I'll taper it way down and then flare it out. This particular spindle is about the size of my pinky finger. But like I said, it's wearing out. So the previous video had to do with collecting elder, box elder, or white or red alder. I'm still trying to key out that particular tree. But what I do know from practice, from just trying it the hard way, is that this piece of wood is the very best material in my area that I've found that makes an ember. It's like some kind of creek alder. It grows down in the water at the basin of the creek. It goes dormant in the winter, sheds its leaves, and it's a good soft wood. Kind of interesting too. The hardest place it is to make a fire is down in the river, by the water. The plants don't do well up in the high mountains where there's fire. They like to live down in the river where there's water. It's the dichotomy. It's like the tallest living thing in the world has the smallest pine cone in the world. And here we go. Got my friction, what do you call it? Hearth. I wish I would have put these circles a little bit closer together. They're kind of spread out. This piece of wood makes good fires. I saw these jokers on YouTube. They were talking about what is bushcraft, and it was like a what is bushcraft thing, and there's this sarcastic couple of jokers are like, I would never make a friction fire set and then bring it with me. I would just craft it out of the woods. Stupid. Make one and use it. Bring it with you. By all means, while you have this guy, make a second one just to test your skills. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you got a good friction fire set, by all means, use every spot available on it, flip it over, and use the other side. And maybe that's what my plan was, actually. Was to burn these holes out, flip it over, and add a second set of holes. I'm pretty sure that was my mindset, now that I think about it. These go and they wear out. So that's why I went and got greenwood, because the dead wood around here is all rotten, and I can't find dead wood that's ready to go. So I have to cut greenwood, dry it out for a couple weeks, strip the bark off of it, shape it, straighten it, so that I can continue using my hearth board that works. By the way, I have more material back there. This is willow. This is the box elder, or white or red alder. And then, so also what I use for a bearing block, this is the part that goes in your hand to put pressure. Just a kindling piece of fat wood. That way I can take and shave off a little bit of this fat wood, use it to extend the fire. Once I blow the fire into flame, I can kind of keep that fire going, especially when it's wet. It's kind of big, I can kind of bear onto it with my hand, put the appropriate amount of pressure down on the spindle. So you're kind of like that. And once you kind of hack that part out, so in my experience, what I would use to make friction fire was a bow drill. And what I would use is things like string, like shoelaces, like bank line, and I'd wrap it around the spindle and get a fire going. But over time, I realized that was a kind of a crutch. If you're really making a true friction fire, you got to go out and find your materials. And this is kind of like a riff on what I said before. It's like a process. So now that I got the spindle, the hearth board, the bearing block, I got those pieces of data kind of like locked in. Now I'm worried about the string. And that's kind of a big reason why you bring what you bring out into the woods. You're bringing a water bottle or a canteen because it's hard to contain water. It's hard to make a container. You're bringing shelter and clothing because it's hard to fabricate. Tanning deer hide's a process, right? Your fire, that's difficult to create. Cordage is difficult to create. Compass or coordination, difficult to create. So you're bringing certain things in that are very difficult to create in the wild. And so I have a few examples of what's produced in the woods. So this is a stinging nettle bark, I guess you call it, the outer layer of stinging nettle cordage. Actually, there's 2 in this pile. A reverse wrapped stinging nettle cordage. This one needs to be slightly damp to use, otherwise it'll crinkle up on you. This is a thinner strip that got reverse wrapped and then backed over and reverse wrapped a second time. So it's a double reverse wrap. Stinging nettle is the second most useful plant for making cordage, but very strong. I've blasted out coals using stinging nettle cordage, slightly dampened. No big deal. Good memory. Second, and the very most useful cordage is yucca. This is fiber from the yucca plant. And so as I've been working with yucca, it's a great teacher. Number one, it's got ferocious spikes all over the plant. As a local Native American Indian says, you have to walk and approach this plant with respect because it will skewer you. And they are not kidding. The yucca plant will scare you, especially the kind of chaparral yucca that grows out in the Central Coast. It is devilish, but it's protecting something very important, and that's its very intense fibers. As you get better, the quality of the rope improves. You learn how to splice in an end loop. This guy here. It's spliced in an end loop. This is actually rigged to be a snare. The tensile strength on yucca cordage is absolutely incredible. It's a quality bowstring material. So I got the kind of snare loops. I run them about 6 feet long, as opposed to the stinging nettle cordage. It's more like 20, maybe even 30 feet long. Yucca cordage, I limit down to about 6 feet, because I can always daisy chain them together and make a longer cord. Some of them are a little bit skinnier, so I've practiced with different thicknesses. This thinnest one here, its intention is to go here with the friction fire. It's a shorter piece. It's about 3 feet. The loop can either go around my finger to apply tension, or it can go around the end of the bow for the bow drill technique. Flares out in the middle, tapers out in the end. Like I said, a close second is the stinging nettle cordage. Take the time to go earn these skills. Get good with them. Own these skills the best way you can. If no other reason, it boosts your confidence. You can walk out into the woods and see certain plants and know what they're good for. You can, live in a kind of outdoor setting, right? Got my anvil, my wood stack, my kettle, my beautiful lead crystal with my sippy drink here, oak toasted tincture. Toasted oak tincture. But you can live out in the woods and never worry about making a fire, because you know how to do it with the sticks and the leaves that are out there. You never have to worry about a lot of things, because now you've earned those skills, and you're not cheating by using modern technology to get you to that place. And as you get better and better, you challenge yourself more and more. So it goes in with that concept. Don't be intimidated by the process. Start out with bank line, a bent stick. Learn what wood works good. Get yourself started. Make a bunch of fires. See how that one's kind of blown out? Same with that one, but not that one, not that one. There's multiple more fires in this one piece of wood. Spindle's wearing out. In the last video I showed you on the rooftop, it's about as thin as my pinky finger, making more spindles. Only because I couldn't find dry spindle wood out there. Yucca cordage, like a good 1/3 of the United States has yucca, maybe even half would you include the different forms of yucca that grow out in Florida and out in the swamps. Out in my neck of the woods, it's a very thick, very high fiber yucca plant. It's a very evil plant when you try to mess with it. Approach it with respect. Fatwood hearthboard. Get yourself started though. It's a master one skill. Maybe it's finding the spindle. Maybe the first skill is making the cordage. Maybe the first skill is finding your fatwood. Maybe the first skill is finding a good hearthboard. Whatever it is, work it out, but do it one step at a time. Find a friend. Find a guy like old Wild Riley or Dave Canterbury or some of these guys that have mastered these different techniques. So many people on YouTube that are just a wishing well of information, but nothing substitutes getting out there and actually doing it for yourself, blowing out different types of cordage before you realize what works. But you always have shoelaces, right? You always probably have a knife on you, so make it happen. Anyway, I thought I'd mention that. So get your skills in order, because we never know how long this old nonsense is going to last. Master it, smooth it in the woods. Capiche? Wild Riley out.